The tree outside my window is again fully dressed in that shiny spring green that inspires me to clean, or at least hang up my jacket. My acupuncturist, who is attempting to talk my neck muscles off a ledge, has instructed me to spend a few moments every day with a tree, having accurately deduced that I have trouble relaxing. Apparently trees are very relaxed, and absorbing what he calls tree energy may help convince my shoulders that no one is sneaking up behind me wearing a mask and carrying a pair of nunchucks. I find my tree somewhat uncommunicative, giving it a striking resemblance to my ex-husband, were it not for the lack of a TV remote and a Miami Dolphins t-shirt. Reporting back to my acupuncturist about the lack of dialogue, he simply says yes, in his clipped Japanese way, smiles, and tells me I offer him job security. Then, after a moment or two, adding, for now. For now, I obediently sit on the settee outside my front door and watch my tree, its leaves spangling in the sun, birds flying in and out with a noisy grace. I remind myself to take deep breaths, and then wonder if this wouldn't be better with a martini, though it's only noon, and besides I have no vermouth. And remember that perfect martini at Shun-Li and the see-through dumplings? Soon I'm having to remind myself that I'm supposed to be absorbing something, which I suspect is more easily done when not thinking of past debaucheries, especially for beginners. It's not that I don't want to relax exactly. It's just that my brain interprets non-productivity as high-risk behavior. Bad things will surely come of it, ranging from increased cellulite all the way to visions of myself in a homeless shelter, defending my tarp and cardboard. Perhaps it was too many Mary Tyler Moore episodes with all that hat-flinging in Manhattan, or maybe Working Girl, where the climb up came not only with a Manhattan penthouse, but also Harrison Ford on speed dial. America's breast milk of industry and goal-setting has grown a productive member of society, complete with muscle spasms and under-eye circles. I'm not sure if this is who I am or how I am. And the tree is not talking. Of course, there has been forward progress, not the least of which is I now recognize that relaxation is a desirable thing, instead of what happens to old people because something hurts or they've become dangerously invested in what happens on reruns of Little House on the Prairie. But to say I'm having a slow start is an understatement. Instructed by my massage therapist to lie on the floor and let myself melt for 30 minutes, got translated into lying on the couch for 3 minutes while composing an email on my Crackberry. If not proud of my behavior, I at least told my therapist the truth, despite the fact that her hands were around my neck at the time. Right now, my version of training wheels is a prescription for muscle relaxers, whose job it is to intervene and let me get some sleep. Sleep, it turns out, is important. I didn't know this until recently, as I've lived most of my adult life napping between non-fat lattes. Since beginning my relaxation program, the title itself betraying a somewhat misguided approach, I've been in bed mostly by 10 p.m., giving me a full 9 hours before my dog Chili, tired of crossing her legs and trying not to think about it, threatens me by squatting over my silk Persian rug. As Nancy Reagan warned, we should just say no, even when those drugs can make us feel so good we forget about her husband's colonialist theories about trickle-down wealth that actually pooled somewhere in Martha's Vineyard. A perfect storm was recently created when my inability to follow directions, a predilection that was diagnosed as early as first grade, when I lifted up a nun's habit to see if she had hair, only to discover she had hair and a ruler, met with a prescription too strong for my body weight. Taking a man-sized muscle relaxer on a stomach devoid of food and water turns out to be a bad idea. Waking in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, I found myself in a state horribly reminiscent of a middle school tilt-a-whirl episode. Preferring to try for the bathroom rather than throw up on my new duvet, I stood up, the last act I remember under my own volition, before coming to with a head gash and lying in enough blood for the next Psycho remake. For my sins, I was sentenced to attending a 25-year reunion looking like Rocky Balboa, absent the cool gold belt, but with 14 stitches over my eye. Very lucky for me, the technician reported after the CAT scan of my head that they found nothing. A statement I am sure would not surprise my 5th grade earth science teacher. I insisted that they look again, as I was quite sure that was where I left my Julia Child recipe for burnt almond cream, along with at least a few images of Brad Pitt in a Navy uniform. Despite my encounter with gravity, all this has brought me a heightened awareness of when I am relaxed, and the ability to recognize when I'm not, a state so omnipresent previously that I mistook it for normal. Not wanting to spend the rest of my days on pills and Pinot Noir, I've started to be deliberate about noticing when my body is messaging me with various requests, like breathing, or simply doing one thing at a time. I've long known that multitasking only goes so far, yet some part of my brain, the part that is also home to the fantasy that I will one day have both my dishes and my hair washed on the same day, continues to try to remove the car keys from my bag while crossing the intersection while texting my son. This behavior is how I imagine the chain reaction in nuclear physics, a dangerous domino game that could easily result in death, not to mention fallout, in which I should be smart enough not to play. Yet the delusion that I am being efficient, and thus valuable, persists, and I've escaped unscathed one more time, but with my neck muscles wrapped around each other for dear life. But there is something to this tree conversation, as one-sided as it is, and I'm beginning to think that the one side is in the tree's favor. As I sit and fidget, coaxing my monkey thoughts back from picking bugs off each other and making sudden monkey sounds just for fun, the tree remains, having done nothing else but being what it is. And I feel suddenly sad that it has come to this, that health professionals had to prescribe happiness for me before I would take it. This adult version time out with the tree makes me happy, and that makes me nervous. I don't trust happiness, at least not the kind like this, where I'm happy and not doing anything. I understand shoe shopping, great sex, and getting free samples with my monthly power facial. I understand that when I do them, I feel happy. But this, to just sit, to believe in an oasis, feels like a trap. Someone somewhere surely knows I am not doing, has heard on Fox News about my utter lack of usefulness and the accompanying drain on our society, the decay in my family, and the resulting increase of Rush Limbaugh's already considerable alimony to women I am sure deserve every penny. This opens up, as they say, a can of worms, or at least garbanzo beans, which I am told are on earth for my own good. I am surprised to find this out about me, this dread that punishment is a short step from relaxing, from feeling happiness. As I sit and allow myself to be still, the math in its logic becomes apparent. I learned as a child that idleness, much less zoning out, was not only unrewarded and not admired, but could be harmful to one's health. Living in the projects taught me the completely unmarketable skill of being able to clock an unbalanced youth a city block away, more than enough time to stop staring at how the sun turned spring grass neon, and break into a run the other way, toward some fresh hell, or back to being sequestered in our corridor apartment, where there were always chores in which to safely dwell, accomplished and once more valuable. I've come upon this before, a revelation that leaves me stunned, mostly because it seems so obvious that I can't believe it's gone unnoticed. Despite their pedestrian quality, these things change me in ways that often I see only in reverse. The universe, it seems, conspires to change my ways, not always painlessly, and my response is not always as graceful as I'd like it to be. But respond I do, and eventually I'm new. Who I was has gone to the South Seas and made a left. Half my clothes remind me of astronaut Barbie, and I take them to the thrift. My hair gets cut to match me, and the food I couldn't live without becomes a science project somewhere in the fridge west of the chicken stock. I don't see Epiphanies coming, which either means I should never have been given a driver's license, or perhaps that the surprise factor is critical to how they work. Unlike the dentist or meeting up with my ex to return his collection of Three Stooges Christmas ornaments, I can't reschedule because I'd rather not. Epiphanies are simply there, and what I learn feels as if I'd known it all along. These blessed events always have certain characteristics. They show up when all my previously clever schemes of avoidance have gone useless. They feel like they come from both outside and inside of me all at once. And they leave me calm, with the delightful feeling that now all will be well. And though that's not exactly true, it feels that way for the short term, and does indeed have some long-term application, as whatever I've learned leaves me smarter about this whole life thing, which frankly I've always found a bit tricky to make work, largely because I've been very busy trying to understand myself at the same time, a task not unsimilar to changing the oil in your car while driving. Not that I haven't had success in reshuffling the house of cards that is my life. I've challenged many predicted endings. Sometimes it feels on a daily basis. But epiphanies remind me there are things that I can miss, and that great benefit can come from pushing back on what we've named reality, when perhaps it's nothing more than circumstantial evidence. It does the human good to sit from time to time and simply let ourselves do some inner wandering, to maybe spend some time with a tree and see what comes. And we forget this. Epiphanies, or even just original thought, happens a lot more easily in an oasis, however self-created, than while texting on a treadmill, no matter how clever or talented we are with our thumbs. And that's the kind of life I want, one that isn't based on how people say it's done, but how I feel it wanting to be done, through me. Call me a throwback, but feeling anything seems a bit easier when I'm not so busy doing, with my foot pressed on the pedal. Thought, I've finally learned, is overrated, no matter how much fun I've had with Sherlock Holmes. My most brilliant moments have always come from somewhere else, from an emotional space that houses a kind of wisdom that not only makes me happy with the certainty it brings, but also makes me safe in a way only approximated on the physical plane by very, very large diamonds. I think that safety comes from knowing that I'm living out my life, even if I'll never understand completely what I mean by that. I certainly don't believe in gods toying with our fates or any Calvinist view of predestination, but I do know that I cannot escape the feeling that I have a destiny, though I can choose it or not. There has always been the feeling that I came here to do something. For me, it is to tell the absolute truth of what it's like to be here, and to do that publicly. I'm not much for hiding out in the vault of my imagination. Frankly, that's already a busy place, what with Johnny Depp and Cary Grant constantly fighting over who is going to get to take me to Tiffany's, his treat. I've traveled the world seeking an oasis. I've run 7 Mile Beach in Jamaica, bent my head in a pew on Notre Dame, sipped tea in Tokyo, where once the samurai warred, and then I've come home and back to insanity as usual. I think our travels should teach us more than how to navigate the London Underground, and serve us best when we admit why we went in the first place, to get away, and make getting away a part of the everyday, even if we must insist, even if it feels sometimes like the bravest thing in the world to just sit, to defend our happiness and defy the inner voices that chant ambiguous threats of danger, or that simply the neighbors will see us. The tree this morning is still. Summer is coming. Its leaves will go yellow, go down. I imagine it, then remember to be here instead. I take a breath. No point in rushing it. Truly, no point in rushing it at all.